And now, let's join Maggie Linton on Sirius XM Urban View.
Well, welcome back. Tomorrow we'll chat about reality TV with executive producer Carlos King, who creates hits for many channels, and author Pia Paducone with her book, The Faces of Strangers. But we continue right now with another look at the life of Prince with Dr. Donnetrice Allison, Associate Professor of Communication Studies and Africana Studies at Stockton University. She's also the editor of a very fascinating book called Black Women's Portrayals of Reality Television, The New Sapphire. Welcome, Doctor.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. Good talking with you. Let's talk a little bit about, first of all, your studies, the Africana studies, because you really go, what we consider Africana, you go from hip-hop and all the way through to the prose, don't you?
I sure do. Yeah. I teach classes at Stockton University in hip-hop culture, which is a class I created. I teach the Introduction to Africana Studies. I teach African Americans in film and African Americans on television.
Well, you wrote an article that's titled For Colored Girls Who Love Prince. And I don't think there are many people in the world who don't know where they were the day that we heard that Prince had died.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you give an example of someone coming in to let you know.
Yes. It was, of course, April 21st. It was a Thursday. I was in the copy room. I was finished with my classes for the day, and someone just came in, and she said, did you hear that Prince passed away? And what's crazy is for about 10 seconds, I was just looking at her because I was processing. We have named our dog Prince, and so I was processing in my mind, would my husband have called her and told her our dog died? I mean, because it just occurred to me that, Prince the musician is who she was talking about. And then she said, no, I'm talking about Prince, the singer. And I was just flabbergasted. I just couldn't even say anything.
Well, I understand what you mean, and I was in St. Louis for a friend's retirement party, and when I had been to what's weird, name of a restaurant, the restaurant's name was Death in the Afternoon. Highly recommend the restaurant, but when I came out and got in my car, I turned the radio on, and the first words out of this young woman's mouth was, it has been confirmed, Prince is dead. And I went, what? And so once again, immediately started being flooding with the number of people who he helped build their careers.
Right. Exactly.
And when you think about the black women that he also lifted up, it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a lifelong fan, so it was interesting to me to find that some took my article and statement as being critical of Prince, which it certainly wasn't, because everybody in my family knows. I mean, I had family members calling me to see if I was okay when they heard about it, because they all know how I felt about Prince my whole life. So, it wasn't at all criticizing him, and it wasn't discounting all he had done for black artists and all of that. It was just thinking about, as a little girl, loving him. I mean, literally imagining myself in the audience and him connecting with me and falling in love with me. I mean, so it was that little girl thinking back, wow, in terms of the women that he married or courted or whatever it was publicly, none of them look like me. So it was just kind of going back over and looking at that. But it certainly wasn't suggesting that he hadn't done all that he had done for black artists.
Well, when you think of the number of black artists that he touched, but again, in particular, the women, he wanted them to be the best that they could be, because that's what he demanded of himself.
Right, absolutely.
And I read Sheila E.'s memoir and actually did an interview with her, and she talks about his guidance. And it was never just about how you look, but it's also taking care of your business affairs when you're off the stage too.
Right. Yeah, oh yeah. I've watched different documentaries and interviews with Sheila E. Talking about their interactions and their relationship overall over so many years.
And but yet he didn't have a will, which just boggles my mind.
That's so hard to believe.
It really is. In it, you also talk about a short story that you wrote when you were 14, For the Love Of. And that in particular really could touch a lot of people.
Yeah, I dug it up right after, because I remember finding it a few years ago, and I shared it with my daughter, and then when I heard the news about him, I dug it up again and looked at it. It was just, like I said, I just kind of imagined myself as a girl in the audience who he connected with and fell in love with. So it was this love story, basically, between myself and Prince. But what struck me most was that I described the main character specifically as a light-skinned girl with long, pretty hair and all that. So that struck me. And as I looked back on a lot of the short stories I wrote back then, my main female character, I always described her that way. And so when I got into the field of Black studies and communication, I had to reevaluate myself and where I was as a teenager and when that started to change. And so that was also interesting because I looked at and kind of analyzed what I took in terms of media, what I took in terms of media growing up. And even with looking at, I like New Edition as well, looking at New Edition videos, the girls had a certain look. So it's just kind of thinking about how all of that played out in media when I was a young girl and how that affected me.
The other thing, and you as well as many of us also started realizing that the older he got, the more, in a sense, he embraced his blackness.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah.
When you think about him going in, after Freddie Gray and the riots and going straight into Baltimore and saying, hey, folks, let's come back together. Because he was also a person who was constantly saying, come together.
Right, absolutely. He had the song about Baltimore. He has another one with background speaking with Cornel West on the song. And these were all very recent songs that he put out. And he was much more directly, he always talked about issues and social issues and all that, but he seemed in the most recent years to be much more direct and much more aggressive about his approach.
Yeah. He was an amazing man, and that is for sure. Folks, we're going to take a quick break. When we return, more with Dr. Donnetrice Allison. And we're going to talk not just about Prince. I want to talk about your book, too, because it's really interesting and so much study on that. Stay tuned. We're going to be right back.
You're listening to the Maggie Linton Show on Sirius XM Urban View. We'll be right back. And now, let's join Maggie Linton on Sirius XM Urban View.
Well, welcome back. We continue with Dr. Donnetrice Allison. She is Associate Professor of Communication Studies and Africana Studies at Stockton University. She's also the editor of Black Women's Portrayals on Reality Television, The New Sapphire. And thank you so much for presenting this book, too, because I have to tell you, as you went through it, I have to be honest, I have never watched The Housewives of Atlanta. Never watched it, because even as I flipped through the channels and started to watch it, it's like these women I can't even relate to them.
Yeah, I only watched clips and parts in doing research on it, but I never just sat and watched it. Yeah. It makes my stomach turn, really. I'm just honest.
Well, I look at them with their fake hair, their fake nails, their overdone makeup. They're out of touch with reality, thinking that money is that the ruler of everything. Thinking so many people are less than, taking one word out of a sentence. It's like, really? I just don't get it.
Yeah, I always say that, the kinds of things I see on these shows is so out of the realm of reality. I mean, the circles of black women that I've traveled in, and I have, several black women friends of PhDs. We get together, we have dinner. We've never interacted that way. We've never had arguments and made scenes in restaurants. I mean, these just things never happen. So the way it's portrayed on television, making some people think that is a common thing among black women, it just makes my stomach turn.
Yeah. How did you get your contributors together? Because, boy, you have a lot of different people, and not only that, but you also do extensive notes for resources.
Right. Yeah, it all started in 2012, actually. It's been almost 4 years at the National Communication Association conference. I go to the conference every year. That particular year, I put together a panel on this issue, and so the young women who presented on the panel that I chaired, they gave such phenomenal papers that I thought, this has to be a book. Mm-hmm. So we talked about it after. I stayed in contact with them, and then I put out a call to get additional contributors, because there were only about 4 young women who presented on that panel. And then I put out a call for additional contributors, and so that's essentially how it started coming together. People sending me their proposed ideas for chapters, and that's how it started coming together, because I just thought this really should be a book, because it was such a phenomenal discussion and panel, and the audience was engaged. So that's really how it all started.
Yeah. When you open the book with the Christianity and motherhood, and again, I just don't watch those kind of reality shows, but even with that, there are at least some positive things that come out of the women who are the wives of preachers' wives, or whatever it is, that preachers of LA, that we can learn from. Some positive.
Even the positives, you have to, even the positives are questionable, just as is kind of discussed in the shooting chapter, because the preachers of LA, particularly that was kind of the first franchise, if you will, was the Preachers of LA, and their wives were shown a lot more than, like, once you got the Preachers of Detroit and Atlanta, you didn't see a whole lot of interaction with wives, but in LA you did, and they would get together, and they did have some kind of catty interactions that really bothered me. Mm-hmm. So, yes, in some ways you had the message that, they're women of God, and of course they always talked about faith and things like that, but at the same time you also had some of that cattiness going on as well, and that took away from whatever positives they were trying to display.
Well, I was going to say, you can preach it, but you aren't necessarily doing it and following it the way you should. I think back to the what reality shows, those sitcoms, Good Times and the Cosby Show, and you don't find many of those same kind of mothers out there. Now it's the put down, the not taking the time to really teach what could be. I have to say, though, what is it, Blackish? Tracy Allen. Tracy Ellis Ross is kind of a more real type of person that you can at least look to.
Yeah, I've actually been enjoying that show. Mm-hmm. I know within the Black Studies community, a lot of my colleagues didn't like. They were very critical of the idea when it was first introduced, and a lot of it had to do with the title. They really didn't like the title. But I've been following the show. I watch it with my children. I have 3 children. It is very much a family show, and what I've enjoyed about it is the opportunities it creates to discuss certain things.
Right.
With my children. So, one episode they had the N-word thrown out there. And so we actually got into a discussion. I have a 14-year-old son, and I just, asked him, do your friends use that word? And so I do really, I'm enjoying the show.
Yeah. And there are other choices, but not as many as they should be. Once again, we're talking with Dr. Donnetrice Allison, Associate Professor of Communication Studies and Africana Studies at Stockton University. We were talking about Prince, but we're also talking about her book that she edited. It is called Black Women's Portrayals of Reality Television, The New Sapphire. Let's talk about the talk shows, too.
Yeah.
Because, oh, my goodness. And all they do is gossip.
Yeah.
And they give very little. Mm-hmm.
I don't watch it. I couldn't bring myself to watch The Real, partially because Tamar Braxton was on the show, and I just have issues with her. So, so the way that they, again, try to portray that as real, that, our behavior is how real black women act, I just have an issue with that.
Yeah. And, again, not talking about anything that's real. They spend a lot of time gossiping about other people, talking about the latest fashion and things like that. It's like, no, come and lift me up. Here you have a chance to do something really positive, and you're choosing not to.
Right. Yeah. And it does bother me because I believe that, I'm not sure which show it was, I think, but there was a time where, oh gosh, what is her name? She's married to the football player, Emmett Smith?
Pat Smith?
What's that?
The one who's married to Emmett Smith?
Yeah, is that who I'm thinking of? She was in that TV show years ago with Johnny Depp. Mm-hmm. I'm blanking on her name, but she was on one of those shows.
Holly Robinson Peete.
Yes, she was on one of those shows in the beginning, and then they took her off. I think they took her off because she just wasn't acting like they wanted black women to act. She wasn't loud. She wasn't any of those kinds of things, and so they got rid of her. I love her. She is such she's just so poised. I love the way she carries herself, but yet they don't want a black woman like that on the show.
No.
Want loud and all of that, and that just bothers me.
Right. Let's talk about Roots. Have you watched any of Roots?
I've been recording it on DVR, but I haven't watched it yet. I was hesitant because it's one of those things where it's a classic, and you don't know how they're going to be able to redo a classic. So we haven't gotten around to it yet, but I've been recording it with the intention of sitting down and watching it with the children. Yeah,
I started watching it the first night, and I really just haven't had time to get back to it. But I'm doing the same thing you are, recording the series.
Right.
And my one gripe I have with so many black folks is they want to knock a show before any of us have ever seen it.
Right.
And talk about how it is. And I go, how do you know? It's just like we were saying with Blackish. A lot of people were saying, well, I'm not going to watch it. Why? Because of the title. But give it a chance. I'm sorry, some of the reality shows I've tried, but that isn't working. But at least give it a chance. I can remember when Roots first came on, the very first one, and seeing the quality of work and how it changed the way we watched TV. We started looking more for each other. And then, again, not finding it for a while. But now we've got the good black friends that are on almost every show. And if they don't have somebody black on the show, I'm not watching that show.
Right.
Or I should say even a minority. But that's my choice. That doesn't mean that everybody has to choose that way. We've got a call from Charlotte in Atlanta. Good morning, Charlotte. Thank you for calling.
Yes, good morning. I must say that I do agree with, some of the comments about Tamar Braxton, and not trying to hate on any one particular person, but I was never impressed with her on a talk show. And then this morning as I was driving, I heard that Steve Harvey announced that he is, I think, helping her produce her own talk show. He announced that this morning, and I thought,
why?
That doesn't help. Right.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
That's news to me.
Yeah, that was announced just this morning, that he is supporting her in her own talk show and something like that. And, when Blackish first started, I was not impressed with the first 3 episodes, but the writing later became so deep and so fulfilling and really did make people think. So I take the show every week because, I do watch Empire. But I'm just going to put that out there.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I got one or the other recording every week, so I totally get it. Yeah.
But I like the writing in Blackish so much. So much.
Yeah, I agree.
It's making a difference. And as Dr. Allison said, it's opening up conversation.
It's opening up conversation. And can I say a third thing, and I know you guys have to go, with the New Roots, I remember when it first came out, I think I was like 6th or 7th grade, and our church, it was like everybody must watch this show because most of our, teachers and things had already read the book. So, and I think for this new generation who does not know their history, it's putting it out there. Now, granted, they still need to go read, but, the comments that Snoop made, they really, really hurt me deeply because our kids need to know this stuff.
That's right.
Yeah.
They didn't just show up with everything working right for them. Dr. Allison, I'm going to let you. Thank you for your call, Charlotte. Stay safe out there. Dr. Allison, I'm going to let you have a last comment if you have one.
Yeah, I love what you said about the fact that, sometimes we're critical before give something a chance. So the way I've always approached it, I say that, I can't critique something if I haven't seen it. So even when it's something that I'm concerned about, I will watch anyway, and then I will form my opinions about it. So I will take a look. I have found that I don't like the reality shows, but I have seen enough of it to know why I don't like it. But I will definitely watch something and give it a chance before I will critique it.
There you go. It is Dr. Donnetrice Allison, Associate Professor of Communication Studies and Africana Studies at Stockton University. Her book, Black Women's Portrayals on Reality Television, The New Sapphire, is available at Amazon.com and other locations. You can catch up with Dr. Allison on Facebook. Tomorrow, reality TV producer, I guess we're going to talk some more, Carlos King, and also author Pia Paducone with her book, The Faces of Strangers. You've been listening to The Maggie Linton Show.